Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
Hello all, welcome back to Eventful Endeavors. I'm Hunter, and we've got another episode coming to you from the Pacific Northwest today. It is a beautiful P&W spring day out here. Can't come soon enough, we're all saying. And I am very happy to be joined today by Katie Quinn, planner with New Creations Weddings. Katie, welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, as always to start, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found your way to the field of wedding planning?
Well, it definitely was an unexpected way into the field. Definitely not the path I originally had planned for myself. But through planning my own wedding, I discovered how much fun it was. I really had a knack for it and decided to kind of look into if this was a possibility to be a career or not for me. At the time, we just had one child. My husband worked full time and we're, trying to figure out what do I do? So I took an online course in wedding planning and event planning. Then I just found friends and family who were engaged, used them as guinea pigs to test all my new skills on, and did that as a hobby for a while. Things really picked up when I met New Creations owner Ricka Grant, joined her team, and I've been with them ever since, just kind of really learning firsthand from an experienced planner. And now I do, full-fledged weddings, so it's kind of cool how something that was just a trial, a little hobby turned into a full-on career.
Awesome. I mean, that's how I feel about my my pathway with music frequently. Question that I didn't realize I had actually until just now. So New Creations is it mostly just you and Rebecca as far as planning staff?
It is, yes. We do have a couple people who come on as assistants as needed, but it's just really just the two of us.
Okay. Yeah, it just made me curious because I was thinking again of my own field, right? You might have a band with the same full-time membership all the time, or you might have, I've done a lot of work as a hired gun is kind of the term, right? Where typically it's a solo artist and they might be playing a lot of solo shows, but sometimes they play a duo show and they need typically either like a keyboard player or a lead guitarist or a violinist. And sometimes they're playing full band shows, right? And then so that was my work for a couple of years there, right? I wasn't necessarily a full-time member. I didn't expect to be on every show, but I knew usually a couple times a month I might get the call like, hey, you available on this date? I'm just was curious if it ever worked the same. Because I would imagine, right, for some larger scale weddings, right, like having as many hands on deck as you can.
Yeah, we do have to sometimes take on multiple assistants for bigger weddings, particularly cultural weddings for multiple days. We like to take people on any wedding that has more than 200 guests, always try to have an additional set of hands. Moving people from cocktail hour to reception is, a very long process. So as many hands I can get people moving, the better.
Yeah. Do you have any, I guess, like favorite stories from, or even just like the story of an entire wedding that you've done thus far?
I'd have to narrow that down. I've had some pretty incredible moments.
Say most memorable for whatever reason.
I guess I'd love to kind of mention the one I recently did back in November. It was a wedding through Wish Upon a Wedding. They're an organization who grants free of charge weddings to couples who are suffering from a terminal illness or other kind of situation where, unfortunately they can't plan their own wedding and they can't afford it. Everyone who was a part of that wedding donated their services 100% free. The photography, we had every single slot vendor that you can think of was a part of it. We had photographer, videographer, DJ, everything, donating their services to this amazing couple who the bride was terminal with stage 4 brain cancer. She was very, very young too. And so that in itself was just such a profound experience to really bring me back down to kind of why I became a wedding planner to begin with. Throughout my career as a wedding planner, you kind of get desensitized to the emotional aspects of it. Like, you don't really get to see the ceremony because you're thinking about the next step. And all of those aw kind of moments you don't really get
Yeah.
to experience anymore. And so it really was a great way for me to be like, this is why I'm doing this. To see these two people be able to get married, it was their dream wedding. I got to plan it from start to finish, full planning in only 2 months. That was a sprint and stressful, but so rewarding. I think, if anyone has the opportunity to be a part of something like that, jump on it. I know it, you think about, oh, well, I'm donating so much money to this cause, but oh, it's so, so worth it.
Yeah. More than worth it. Yeah. Right. I mean, one of those, I just imagine myself, I see, I think, why you would have that feeling, being in the field. Is this in the same way, actually? When I started doing music for a living, I tried to hold myself to doing at least a few shows a year for free because as it sort of went from, well, being in school to being a working adult, and from being part time to basically my full time, and of course, I found myself having to do more and more the math of, well, what's the time commitment versus the pay,
Hmm.
and does the math shake out? Which is, like what you got to do to make a living. But I tried to take at least a few shows a year just for the fun of it, to remind myself, like, no, at the end of the day, that's not why I do this. There is deeper meaning here. And as a wedding coordinator, yeah, to help people bring together this is one of the handful of dates, right, that is going to define your life. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. And in this industry, we don't get very many opportunities to give back. And so I didn't realize this was even a thing. And now that I know, I just want to tell everybody.
Yeah. Uh, Newbie question here. So you said 2 months was a sprint. What's a more typical timeline look like?
It takes about a year to 18 months to plan a full wedding from start to finish. That's typically what we like. I've planned weddings within that time frame. My own wedding I planned in 4 months. But even though we were engaged for 3 years, we decided just to not take our time with that. But typically, for a full planning, it's a full year. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, we have this wedding happening in November. They like to do it in the off season. So then it's a little bit more of an incentive for people to join on to the projects. You're not giving up
Yeah.
like a peak August Saturday or anything like that. But, it's definitely, you have to find every vendor, you have to find the venue, everything. And that takes time. And so it really was just a daily grind getting everything done in time.
Gotcha. And I think that dovetails nicely into something else I wanted to ask you. So, another question from someone who is unmarried and not a wedding planner myself. And I think if I can kind of just, guess from the name and from context, but can you talk a little bit about just the difference between day of coordination and being a full planner, partial? Like, is it pretty much what you'd guess from the names, or is there a little more to it? Are those typically clearly defined roles for any given wedding, or does it sometimes like blend one into the other a little bit?
Yeah, that's most planners kind of agree. Full, you're planning the whole wedding. Partial, you're taking on, bits and pieces while the couple takes on bits and pieces and you combined efforts to create your wedding day. Day of coordination really it's not just coming in on the day, swooping in and running it. With new creations, we like to call it final planning because it's those final 4 months before wedding that you kind of take over, you make your timeline, make your layout, and then day of coordination isn't really included in every kind of wedding package you can think of. That's just like
Yeah.
the actual day. So there's a little bit of crossover. I know each company kind of has their own idea of what they view as partial planning. We like to have it be design focused. So we handle anything visual, your rental items, specialty napkins, linens, florist, cake designer, all those little things. And then the couple takes care of more of the logistical items, such as your DJ, photographer, videographer. But there are other companies who take a different approach and they do partial as more of, they they'll handle like the initial contact of vendors, and then the couple kind of takes over from there. But full and day of coordination are kind of those that are pretty streamlined in the industry.
Gotcha. Cool. And that leads into, I guess I just have a lot of sort of newbie questions today. These are
Great.
genuinely
Yeah. Bring
interesting
it
to me.
on.
So I was thinking a little bit actually, my girlfriend and I were talking about, so as I think I mentioned to you on the email, I was just down in Utah. We were doing some backpacking and she's still out hiking the entirety of the Hayduke Trail for the second time, 800 miles, Utah into Arizona. She's a badass. I don't know what she's doing with me. Um,
That's amazing.
yeah. Yeah, it really is. And but we were just, in going over the logistics for that, we were talking, planning for long distance backpacking trips a little bit, which we've both done a fair bit of, her even more so. And as you said, right, with that year to 18-month typical timeline for planning a wedding, it kind of jogged my mind of that's a pretty typical timeline, I think, for planning a through hike to,
Mhm.
multiple hundreds or thousands of miles. And when we were talking about it, we were kind of touching on how we've each approached the ones that we've done. And what we found was like kind of what we suspected, is that probably I'm a little more so the plan, boom, 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 like make my itinerary, try to stick to it, understanding that not everything is going to be entirely predictable and you will probably break the itinerary at some point. But to then, have a plan A, plan B, plan
Mhm.
C. And that's kind of how she's approaching this one. Desert hiking, you have to do that a little more because water is such a factor. And in alpine, right? Like up here, you can be a little bit looser with it. Uh, but that it made me think and be curious as far as especially I think the day of or final coordination, right? Obviously, a wedding is not exactly the same as a backpacking trip. But as far as there's even more moving pieces. And to finally get to a question here, I guess it was: are there any aspects that you found are maybe less predictable than one might think? Right? Are there any parts of the typical all the moving pieces you have at a wedding that that like there's just seems to be some element of we can't entirely predict what's going to happen here? And if so, day of, then do you lean more towards like plan A, if for whatever reason we have to abandon plan A, plan B, plan C? I'm figuring out at the moment. I should have sort of planned out how I phrase this a little
I
better, but
think I
hopefully
understand
does
what
that
you're
make sense?
asking.
Yeah.
Like, how to approach those situations where you can't really predict it?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was completely clockwork, then nobody would even need to be there day of, right? But of
Mhm.
course it's not. So yeah.
So yes and no. The parts of the wedding day that are unpredictable are also predictable. You expect ceremonies sometimes to run a little longer. You expect moving people from point A to B to take more time. Probably the biggest wild card is the toasts, honestly. You never know how long father of the bride's going to
Mm.
talk. We've had situations where, oh gosh, this was years ago, and the father of the bride talked for half an hour. And we're like, my gosh, like everyone was enjoying it, but what do? You're behind in your timeline. Nobody knows what's going on. He's just talking and talking and talking. But that's kind of one of those skills you learn as a planner is you have to adapt. You have to pivot. Make those calls of like, okay, well, we're behind here. What can we do to speed up to get to the portion of the evening that the couple's really important or that the couple views as important? You have to have the plan A, plan B mentality to succeed in wedding coordination. Now, you also have to think on your feet without a plan because, especially if you're dealing with like the specialty weddings that are on an island that involve a ferry, that again is
Well, yeah,
another piece that is
fun parts
so
of life in Western Washington.
yeah, it's predictably unpredictable. You know that things are going to happen, but you don't know what. So just navigating kind of like what to do in that moment, making the call, but you have to do it with such a professional grace. You can't panic. You have to have it's going to be fine. We're going to be a little bit late on this, and that's okay. Having a plan before you approach any vendor or talking with it, talking through the situation. I love to talk to the DJ when it comes to those types of situations because were kind of the two that really run the programming of the day.
Yeah.
I actually had a situation a couple months ago. It was a Cambodian wedding, and those typically run about 3-hour ceremonies with little intermissions in between. And we got the call that the monks were running late because they ran out of gas on the highway, and they were not expected to be there probably, an hour late or so. And here's this ceremony happening, and I'm, like, okay, what do? We have to rearrange this, rearrange that. So finally, when intermission came, I approached the couple. I'm like, okay, we're just going to switch this and this. It's going to be fine. You can't be like, oh my gosh, the monks are late. Everyone's going to have to be delayed by an hour. You have to have those quick thinking plan B moments to execute a wedding.
And very similar to, as we'd also touched on a little bit, we are both former theater kids here. And I guess I just first asked, do you have any favorite roles that you played at any point that just really stand out?
I think the funnest was actually in high school. I think I was a junior in high school. I can't remember. Sophomore or junior. And we did fairy tales in like a not anything like Into the Woods. Most people assume it's Into the Woods. No, we did snippets of fairy tales in like this longer play production. So like we had like the Three Little Pigs, Rapunzel, Snow White, and we actually went to different elementary schools and performed for them.
Nice.
It was so much fun. It wasn't anything like, like Wicked or Mary Poppins or anything, but it was really, really fun just to be pig number 3 and just run with it.
It reminded me of our swing choir, like the sort of the small jazz swing choir at my high school was called the Showstoppers, and it had the distinctive look. I think it may have changed a bit in the years since I graduated because I'm an old man now. But for a long time, I remember it was like the red sparkly dresses and the red suspenders. And I swear to God, I'm still finding like glitter from the dresses. From when I had a minivan, like just the classic mid 2000s Toyota Sakuma van that, and I was frequently shuttle for a lot of us. And I think there's still glitter under the seats. It never leaves. But once a year, we had the Showstopper Tour Day. We called it. I guess the choir director had enough pull that she could plan it out and kind of pull us all out of school for the day.
Wow.
And we went around to all the elementary and middle schools, and also like sometimes like a couple of the retirement homes or maybe a church, and did our sort of 20-minute show like 10 times in one day, and it was great recruitment.
Wow.
A lot, right? And she frequently, any some current stops would share their memory of, I remember seeing this when I was in elementary school, and it made me really want to do it. So she set up a very effective pipeline. But I think it was a good introduction, even as a teenager to, like this, the show must go on, right? You're going to be a working performer, professional, right? Just like got to show up, do the thing, pull with the punches, right? Because it doesn't always go smoothly when you're trying to do 10 shows in a day. So, with, of course, being a performer, being stage manager, right, on a theatrical production, right, just being on top of everything. Do you feel like that? There's definitely similarities. Do you feel like that has informed the way that you approach wedding coordination? Like, do you sort of, looking back, see any lines that you might draw from one to the other?
I mean, I think maybe the first thing that really comes to mind is improv. When someone forgets their lines and you're trying to help remind them without reminding them. It's very similar to kind of, what I just touched on, where you have to, think on your feet a lot as a wedding coordinator. Also, acting in general, you have to act like everything's fine when sometimes it's not. And then I guess I feel like theater people have a specific personality that I don't know how you are, but I'm very outgoing and upbeat, and I tend to think on the positive side of things. And I feel like a lot of friends I know who are into theater as well have those similar traits where they can go and approach someone and be like, hey, can you please make your way to reception? It's time for dinner. Versus someone who is more shy and reserved and doesn't like to talk to people that want to work for them. So I don't know if that's so much theater training, but I feel like people who go into kind of the musical theater or just plays in general have that little spark inside them where they are bubbly and people pleasers and they love to be around others. And I'm definitely one of those.
Gotcha. I was I was probably a little bit more on the curmudgeonly side as far as the theater folks, but it's fine, right? Somebody has to like play all the cranky old man roles. That
Exactly.
was my typecast in
You
high
were
school.
you were Ebenezer Scrooge, huh?
I wouldn't go quite that far, but like I was Ado Annie's dad in Oklahoma,
Oh,
right? So got to be suspicious and threaten Curly a bunch, or no, not Curly, Will.
well, yeah.
No, it's Ali Hakim, I think, I can't remember. It was like 10 years ago. Um, and I was Mr. Bennett in Pride and Prejudice.
Mm,
I did get to break the type. Probably my favorite in high school was Algernon in Importance of Being Earnest.
I have actually never seen that play.
It's fun. It's very goofy, and we definitely hammed it up for all it was worth. My coworker, yeah, my co-star, yes, got pranked me pretty well on opening night. Trying to think if there's a yeah, I don't the way she did it was a little not safe for work. So I don't know if I can share it on the podcast, but like I was this close to just completely losing character in front of the whole audience. Yeah, she it was well played. Fun times. Cool. And I think something I always like to ask at some point, is there any advice you would give to a first time wedding planner? Could be someone else, could be yourself, however many, 6, 8 years ago.
I definitely would recommend spending a year assisting and shadowing well-established planners in your area. It's really tempting to dive right in. And had I known that back in 2014, when I started my journey as a wedding planner, wasted a lot of time just kind of trying to do it on my own. Having now I know kind of what I would have done differently. And the very first year I was with Rebecca's team, that's what I did. I assisted the entire year and I learned from her. And at the time we had another senior planner, Mandy, and I just absorbed every little bit of knowledge they could pass my way. And you get that real world experience. I was very appreciative that I had that full year to do things before I started taking on day of coordination and partial planning and full planning and all that stuff. It's really, it's hard because you just want to jump right in and you're like, hey, I know how to do this. Let's plan a full wedding. But really pause, take a year, go to different planners because you'll also learn about kind of how you want to run your own company. You'll learn about the type of planner you want to be because everyone's different. I've assisted other planners besides New Creations team, and I always learn something new when I'm helping out. And even still now, they can reach out to me and like, Katie, I have absolutely no one to assist me at this wedding. I've reached out to everyone else. You want to join me for this one? I'm like, absolutely, sure. And, even though I've been doing it for a long time, it's always great to see kind of, hey, how do you run your weddings? Maybe I can learn something or I can help you in something that maybe you want to learn about how to run weddings. So definitely spend a year just learning. Hold off on jumping right in.
Makes a lot of sense. A
Yes.
lot of sense. Yeah. So, two groups I played with for a long time. I guess this might be a little more on the how much is pre-planned versus how much do you adapt in the moment side. But in just sort of learning different styles and what you find works well for you. One of the artists who I played a lot with as a hired gun was very spontaneous, very like would just sort of call songs in the moment, call one and I'd be like, sometimes, maybe it was not on the list that I had, but I'd played it previously and I was okay. Sometimes it was like, I have never heard this song in my life. And it's just like, it's fine. Like 1 4 2 5, just watch me, you'll be good.
No.
And we would just go for it. Yeah. But that was a good way to learn, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this is part of being a pro. I might make some mistakes, but if I'm watching
Mhm.
yeah, from watching the fellow players well, right? Usually the lead guitar player is standing over there, like he'd strum and then just like kind of flash me a 4 chord or whatever it'd be, and then I'd be like, "Gotcha, thank you." And another group that I've been playing with for about we've had the same core 5 people for about 4 years now, and we play from sheet music. We plan the set out, give it a whole arc to it. Often there's a theme. Right now we're doing a run with a set. We have like 2/3 of the James Bond theme songs, and so like we dress up a little bit. We got like a cardboard cutout of Sean Connery and Craig, and I think Brosnan. Yeah, and very much the other end of the spectrum. Like we plan it out, we play it the same way every time, and present the show. And I enjoy both. I think in the moment, most of the time, lean maybe a little more towards the planned side, but it's also nice to shake it up sometimes, and just have a like, I don't know what's gonna happen,
And in the moment
the
jam
audience is into
session.
it. Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Okay, I think that was everything I had, and we're right about at our typical time. Any last things you can think of that you'd like to share with the listener, or with the appreciative wedding planning newbie you have sitting right here?
No, I think we definitely touched on a lot of really great subjects. You asked some really good questions, and I'd love to come back, again and share my wisdom
Absolutely.
that I have.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.